I came back from a week away thinking I'd walk into my quiet cabin, maybe pour myself a drink, maybe just sit on the porch and breathe in the pine air. But instead I pulled into my driveway and nearly slammed the brakes when I saw 100 cars scattered across my land, tents pitched, flowers strung across the railing, and the unmistakable shriek of HOA President Karen Whitmore, barking orders like she was the director of some Hollywood wedding shoot. And before I could even catch my breath, she turned, pointed at me, and called me a trespasser on the very ground my family had built with their own hands. That was the moment I realized this wasn't going to be a misunderstanding. It was going to be war. See, this cabin isn't just some rental lodge. It's my family's retreat, my bloodline's escape from the noise of the city. And the deed has my name, Jake Miller, stamped clear as day. My grandfather built the original structure. My father spent every summer patching it up. And now I'm the one keeping it alive. It sits outside any HOA jurisdiction. Deliberately so. But Karen is the type who sees every inch of land as something she can manage, regulate, control. I'd heard the stories from neighbors, her clipboard of fake rules, her smug smile when she fined people for grass length or porch lights. But I never thought she'd turn her sights on me. Until that day, until I saw her standing there with a damn megaphone in my driveway, yelling at caterers to set up tables on my lawn. I stepped out of my truck, heart hammering, but trying to keep calm, and said, "What the hell is this? Why are you on my property?" She snapped back without hesitation. "Excuse me, this cabin is reserved for a wedding today. You need to leave before the guests arrive." My blood boiled. Reserved? What does that even mean? I told her flat out. This is my land. You can't reserve it. And she, with the confidence of someone who's gotten away with lying her whole life, waved her clipboard in my face. "I have permits from the real owner," she said. Chin high, eyes daring me to call her bluff. I asked to see them. Of course she refused, snapping the board shut like it was classified. Then, to really twist the knife, she called me a squatter on my own land. Guests started filtering in, well, dressed, confused but smiling, thinking they were at a legitimate wedding venue. A few looked at me funny, like I was some drunk who wandered in from the woods. The vendors, DJ, florist, catering crew, they were already setting up, unloading trays and speakers, clearly under the impression they had a legal contract. And there I stood, arms crossed, seething. I told Karen, "I'm going inside my cabin, locking the door, and blasting music until every damn flower is gone." She shrieked back, "You do that, and I'll call the police right now." And she did, right in front of me, dialed 911 and told them, loud enough for everyone to hear, that there was a dangerous trespasser threatening her wedding guests. She meant me. In that moment, for a split second, I felt like maybe I was the crazy one. Maybe I should just leave. Maybe this was too much. Maybe fighting an entire crowd and an HOA president wasn't worth it. I imagined the cops showing up, siding with her, hauling me off while my cabin turned into someone else's dance floor. I actually felt a flicker of shame, like maybe I was making a fool of myself. My hands trembled. My family wasn't there. No one to back me up. Just me against 100 strangers. But then I thought of my father, of him telling me when I was a boy, "This land is ours, Jake. Don't ever let anyone take it from you." That voice came back, sharp and steady, and I knew I couldn't fold. I couldn't walk away. Not this time. So I went inside, grabbed my folder with the deed, the tax documents, every proof of ownership I had, and I walked right back out onto that lawn. I waved the papers in the air and shouted, "I'm the only owner of this cabin. Here's the deed with my name. Here's my ID. Look for yourself." The vendors froze, one by one. They walked over, took the papers, squinted, then turned back to Karen with wide eyes. "Where's the rental contract?" they asked her. She stammered, shoved some papers into their hands. They looked again, whispered to each other, and I saw their faces change, confusion turning into anger. The florist snapped her binder shut and said, "This isn't legal." The DJ shook his head, muttering, "I'm not getting sued for this." It was like watching dominoes fall, Karen's house of lies wobbling. Then the police showed up, 2 cruisers pulling into my yard, lights flashing. Karen bolted toward them, dramatic as always, yelling, "Officers, that's the trespasser! He's threatening my guests!" She pointed straight at me, voice shaking with fake panic. The cops looked at her, then at me, then at the papers in my hand. I calmly stepped forward, handed over my ID and deed, and said, "Check the county records, it'll match." Karen wouldn't stop screeching, though her voice was like a fire alarm no one could silence. She kept insisting the HOA owned the cabin, that she had authorization, that I was impersonating someone. It was pathetic. But she doubled down, over and over, refusing to shut up even when the cops asked her to. Finally, one officer raised his voice over hers, shouting, "Ma'am, enough! This is private property. He's the owner. Everyone needs to leave immediately." The crowd went silent. Guests shifted uncomfortably, some embarrassed, some angry at being duped. Vendors started packing up their stuff, muttering curses under their breath. And there was Karen, red-faced, hair sticking out, still screaming that it was her event, that the bride would be here any minute, that I was lying. The cops gave her one last warning. "Calm down and leave now, or you'll be arrested." And what does she do? She doubles down again. "No! You can't make me leave! Arrest him! Arrest him!" That was it. The officers spun her around, cuffed her in front of everyone, and dragged her to the cruiser while she kicked and shouted like a child. The so-called wedding collapsed right there. The bride and groom never even showed. Later I found out the bride was Karen's niece, and apparently she'd been promised the cabin as some grand gift. Vendors were furious, not just at losing the gig but at realizing Karen wasn't going to pay them. They apologized to me, but I waved it off. It wasn't their fault. They'd been conned like everyone else. I stood on my porch and watched as the cars filed out. Decorations yanked down. The whole circus dismantled in record time. By the time the sun dipped, my land was quiet again. Just me, the cabin, and the lingering image of Karen's face pressed against the cruiser window, still ranting as they drove her away. And I'll tell you what, that silence after the storm, it wasn't celebration, it wasn't relief exactly, it was vindication. The kind of quiet that tells you you stood your ground and won. Karen thought she could reserve my cabin, but all she reserved was a police record and a reputation in ruins. From that day forward, the HOA kept its distance. Neighbors whispered about her downfall, about how humiliating it was to see their president hauled off in cuffs. And me? I didn't gloat. I just locked my cabin door, poured that drink I'd been craving, and let the night settle back over my land. The land that would never belong to Karen or anyone else but me. The lesson I learned? When you let bullies like Karen take one step onto your property, they'll take a mile, stand your ground, show the truth, and they'll collapse under their own lies. This is Jake, and you're watching HOA Drama Unfolded.